just going to start off by relaxing the legs. They can either be bent or long. Allow the arms to relax down wherever feels right for you. And allow your awareness to travel towards your breath. For these first few breaths, we're going to take more of a controlled breath. We breathe all the way down into our belly. We balloon the belly up very intentionally. We breathe in as much as we physically can, and then we exhale completely, drawing the abdominals towards the spine, releasing away every last bit of breath that we can. Inhale. Exhale. With every intentional exhale, we relax and release more of the muscles of the body. Whereas we started off with maybe a little bit of tension in the shoulders, in the back body, in the face, we just completely surrender down. All of the muscles become heavy. Every exhale melts you deeper into the ground. The releasing of tension through the face can help release away thoughts, which can help us with that guiding back to breath, and the breath acting as a bridge to present. When we allow our awareness to settle on the breath, and only the breath, naturally we are in meditation, we are in present momentness. Often we find it, or the idea of meditation, quite intense, quite confusing or complex. But it's one of the simplest things that we can do. It's simply turning from a state of doing into a state of being. All we need to do is watch the breath. When you're feeling ready, as slowly as you can, draw your feet together and draw your knees slightly wide. So we fall into our supine butterfly pose. If this feels a little bit much for you today, then you can grab a couple of blankets, roll them up and pop them underneath your upper outer thigh. This means that we've brought the ground up towards us so that you can completely relax the muscles, but you don't fall past the point in which you feel comfortable. So wherever we are, whether we're propped up or completely relaxed down with gravity, we begin to switch off every single muscle. Quite a crucial part of yin is that complete relaxation, physically, of as much of the body as we can. So when a pose doesn't feel right for us, we can either swap it out for a completely different pose, or we bring the ground up to us through bolsters, blankets, yoga blocks, anything that we need to make the pose feel like one that we can relax into. The reason relaxation of the body is so important is tenfold. One reason is that we know the state of the body affects the state of the mind. We know that when the body is tense, the mind can also become tense. We know that when the mind is tense, the body can become tense. Similarly, if the body is hungry, the mind can become agitated. If the mind is anxious, the body can become jittery. If the body doesn't move and allow energy to flow, we can become sad. If we become sad, the body can move slower. So we know that there's this very, very interconnected energy between the body and the mind. However, we can't control the mind. All we have in our control is the relaxation of the muscles of the body and the stillness of the body. Eventually, these two things combined lull the mind into a meditative state, or a yin-like state, a state of allowing and accepting, a state of being rather than doing. We start to feel more comfortable looking inwards than we do looking outwards. We don't need any of these states to be permanent. We're simply looking to bring a little bit of yin into what can often be a very yang life. Giving ourselves that time and that permission to nurture the side of ourselves that is always there, always watching, never judging. The consciousness, the self that always is. So we just allow that consciousness to take the front seat or the driver's seat. We allow all the parts of the mind that are doing, such as the ego, habitual thoughts, the identity, the masks that we show ourselves and others. We allow all the parts that decide and react and respond just to allow them to rest. They take the back seat. When they pipe up, we observe, but we don't interact. When you're ready, we allow our legs to slowly come back to their start position. And we have two options for a counter pose here. One option is drawing your knees together and your feet wide. And then option two is drawing your legs long, like so. Do whatever feels right for you. There is no right or wrong in yin. Another reason that it's super important for our body to become relaxed physically, still physically, is we're working with these deep parts of the body. We're working with the joints and the bones, improving lubrication and density. We're working with the connective tissue, the elasticity of the ligaments and tendons and fascia. So we're thinking about the range of motion of your body rather than the flexibility of the muscles, although we do get a secondary benefit of increased flexibility. Because we're working with the range of motion of the body, the intensity is around a 7 out of 10. We never want it to feel so intense that all we can think about is when the pose will be over. We never want it to feel so intense that we don't intuitively know that the pose is okay for us. So we're always showing our body a lot of compassion that way. But we're also finding our edge, meeting yourself at the point in which gravity lowers you down to, and just breathing through the sensations as they arise. So we're practicing equal amounts compassion and discipline, always looking for that balance between the two. These deep areas that we work with in yin are thought to be the areas in which ley lines or meridians pass through. The meridian body is an energetic system derived from traditional Chinese medicine theories. Similar to nadis, the notion that there are channels carrying energy or life force or prana through your body. However you choose to refer to this chi, this energy, everyone shares this united idea that it brings with it a sense of overall well-being, and that we don't need to do anything at all in yin. We don't need to think about pulling more energy towards us. There is already an abundance of energy, always flowing to you and trying to flow through you. What we do in yin is we release away physical, energetic, mental resistance towards that flow of energy. So the idea that tension in any of these bodies can create blocks. So if we notice emotions arise, we just observe. And by observing that is enough to release away a block. When you're feeling ready, lift your left leg up towards you. We take our right hand onto our outer left leg. We guide that left leg over towards the right side of the room. So this is where you could stay today. This is known as Twisted Roots pose. We're going to be targeting the gallbladder meridian, slightly through the urinary bladder meridian, and the stomach, spleen, liver and kidney meridians through compression and stretch. If you would like to intensify further, we could deepen the bend in the right leg, coming into cat pulling its tail. This is a really lovely stretch because it begins to target all the way down the front of that right leg, and it accentuates through the urinary bladder meridian in the lumbar spine. You can hold the whole foot. You could hold just the biggest toe or the sock if helpful. Begin to switch off. Begin to relax down your face. Relax down your jaw. Begin to switch off every muscle in the body. We always keep on the muscles that we need, such as the arm and the hand, but as much of those muscles that we can switch down, we do. We don't really want the engagement of the hand to travel all the way up into the shoulder and into the chest and down the back. We'd like to really isolate the activity into just the fingers and palm, maybe the forearm, and then allow a relaxation from there. Allow a present momentness. Allow your awareness to be with the sensations that you feel, the breath that you're currently taking. Observe any correlation between those two, such as whether we feel an intensity increase on the in-breath and a subtle dissipation away on the out-breath. Whilst a perfect flowing harmony throughout the whole meridian system is thought to bring with it a sense of well-being, a sense of balance through the emotions, each individual meridian is thought to relate to a different emotion and a different internal organ. This pose is mostly targeting through the gallbladder meridian, through the side body. This meridian relates to feelings of letting go, releasing, forgiveness, and that doesn't come from a place of doing. Releasing in yin just comes from acknowledgement. When you're feeling ready, as slowly as you can, we ease back through center. We place both soles of the feet down, and we send both legs long. Send the arms up and behind you, and we're coming straight into another position on the left before we move over onto our right side of cat pulling its tail. So we step both feet over towards the right. We step both arms up towards the right, and we stretch through the left side of the body. Now, because we are relaxing down the body here, it's normal for your legs to splay a little bit back to center. If that does happen, bend your right leg, step the left leg deeper over towards the right, and then plant the right leg long down on top. Allow complete relaxation here. Here we're stimulating the gallbladder in a slightly different way. Rather than that deep twist, which is known for releasing and letting go, this is more of an openness, more related to forgiveness. We stimulate and stretch these areas to encourage the flow through that area. We stretch the physical body of these areas to create more space, more of an open pathway for them to flow through. The physical practice of yin is deeply interconnected with the energetic practice of yin. And in time, when we spend stillness in these poses, eventually the mind reaches that similar state of yin, a similar state of allowing, accepting. We place no pressure on when the mind arrives there. We don't force the mind to be still, to be empty and void of thought. We just accept wherever it's at in the present. We observe thoughts and feelings as if they're floating right in front of you. This creates a degree of separation, not detachment, but simply non-attachment. When we allow a thought to exist out in front of you, it's spending a little moment in stillness. This gives us that freedom to not carry on the conversation, to not trace back the conversation, to not attach more meaning, to not attach identity, but also not to reject the thought and push it away. We just allow the thought to exist there as part of our present moment, just as the breath does. We're here for just a few more breaths. Before we come into our counter pose of drawing the arms down by your side, the legs are straight, and we just rest here for a moment. When we practice yin, in the same way we place no pressure on the mind to be a certain way, we also place no pressure on ourselves to feel a certain way. We don't need to feel relaxed or calm or zen or yin. However we've arrived on the mat, however we are in this present moment, is met with complete acceptance. Our aim in yin, when we target the meridian body, knowing that the meridians relate to different emotions, is not to feel the happiest, the most forgiving, the most joyous at every given moment. We still allow ourselves to feel those human emotions. What we're aiming for in yin is to be able to experience all of the emotions. It's thought that when meridians have a blockage, when meridians have areas of tension surrounding them that blocks that flow, when we have an emotional blockage, so we have areas of stagnancy, it's thought that this can mean that we start to feel cut off from certain emotions, or that we feel a lack or excess of certain emotions. So what we aim to feel is the entire spectrum of emotions. We don't want anything to be cut off, but simply by allowing that flow of prana through the body, which some refer to as universal love or consciousness, which is full of acceptance, compassion, joy, love. Naturally, even though we'll be able to feel the whole spectrum of emotions, we'll be able to feel a little bit more on the happy side. When we're ready, we're going to lift that right leg towards us and then guide that right leg over towards the left side of the room. So, we either stay here in twisted roots pose, or we lift that left leg up towards us, taking the left foot into the right hand. Traditionally, cat pulling its tail would be with that right leg long, extended all the way out. But today we're taking a little combination movement because we are doing two twisting poses, or two poses focusing on the gallbladder, back to back. So we just allow a little bit more gentleness, a little bit more compassion towards the body in the present, in the pose. Allow yourself to relax down into the pose in a way that feels right for you. In the same way that the stillness and silence of yin can feel very uncomfortable at the start of the session, when we might be in more of a yang energy naturally, and then we place that yang energy in a yin pose and it feels quite loud, quite overwhelming. Similarly, the poses can often feel very intense at the start. But often as we fall more and more into that surrender state, more into the poses as we melt down, the poses themselves often become more comfortable, more enjoyable, and sometimes they become so comfortable that we don't really want to leave the pose. We completely melt down into the pose, the whole body sinks, the muscles completely relax, and each pose can become really enjoyable. In some poses this is hard to believe, but overall the yin practice itself can be the same way. The silence might have started off feeling like something that we had to fill, something that the mind would overly compensate with chatter, conversation, travelling in any direction just to fill that silence. Similarly, the stillness can often feel like something that we need to fidget through. The stillness can feel unproductive. And the more we allow ourselves to honour that yin-like state, the yin side of our energy body, bringing balance into our system, the more enjoyable and at home we feel in that stillness. Because we're often wired to always be responding and reacting and deciding, the stillness and silence can feel unfamiliar and unproductive, but it is one of the most productive things that we can do. Physically, we're improving these deep parts of the body that can degenerate when they're not used. So often that stretch response of the muscles contracting means that these deep parts of the body are underused. So we're just using them here, we're moving them in a way that they enjoy. We're creating more elasticity through the fascia so we can move with more ease. And just like holding your thumb down into a knot, each pose is held for long enough that we just release and disperse tension from these deep areas of the body, such as the hips and the back and the shoulders, where we hold tension. Emotionally, we're creating more stillness. We allow emotions to arise and exist as part of our present moment, without judgment, without rejecting them, but without pulling them in and feeding them either. And when we allow ourselves to experience emotions in this way, it means that we can release them from our body. We no longer need to store them to come back to them later, because we just allow ourselves to be with them and feel them. Energetically, we're bringing balance into the yin-yang bodies. We're creating a strong flow through the meridian body, more of a welcome, harmonious flow. And mentally is where we feel one of the biggest shifts, and probably one of the quickest shifts. Mentally, we're creating this space where thoughts can arise. We shine our torch on them without the need to respond or react. We don't force ourselves to be a certain way. We don't need to be perfectly silent. The thoughts don't reflect anything on who we are. We are simply the observer, the consciousness that is non-attached from the body and the brain, non-attached from the emotions even, which can act more as a communicator of thoughts. When we see the emotions as a translator, rather than something that controls us. It can just give us that power to not be so driven in either direction by them. Yin is one of the most productive things we can do for our mind. Because it's a meditative practice. We're allowing ourselves to experience stillness, to be non-doing, which is amazing for our attention, our memory, and our overall cognitive function. You can often immediately feel a shift in your mood. And on the days where we can't quite get to that meditative state, which does happen and is absolutely fine, as long as we keep observing when we've wandered away from present and keep gently guiding ourselves back to present by observing thoughts, by observing the breath, then we're just creating this neural pathway. We're strengthening this habit of being able to do so when we're off the mat. And this too is very, very beneficial and productive. It means that more and more in our day-to-day life, we'll be able to become present, to become aware of our breath, to encourage a belly breath, to relax through the shoulders. When you're ready, we're going to ease back through center. We send the legs long. And before we come into our Savasana, we're going to come onto that left hand side this time. So we guide the hands into a frame. We frame the head by holding the opposing shoulder. We step the feet towards the left, the hands towards the left, and we stretch through that right side of the body. If you find that you now relax and your feet splay wide and back to center, bend the left leg. Gently guide that right leg more towards the left and then plant your left leg on top. From here, we relax down. When we relax here, you might feel like you're overstretching. If that is the case, if we've taken that left leg on top, guide slightly back through center. We never want poses to feel more than a 7 out of 10. We always want to show our body as much compassion as we can. We're completely relaxed through the jaw, through the face, each time your mind begins to wander. Just allow yourself to observe where it wandered to without interacting with the thought. We allow ourselves to see non-interaction as something that we get to do rather than something that we have to do. This can often make meditative practices a little bit easier. We don't force ourselves to be completely silent and void of thought. We don't refrain and restrain from responding. We're not holding anything back. We're just giving ourselves permission to step into the state of non-doing. To step into the role of consciousness or the witness, the part of the self that is separate from the brain and body. the part of the self that is thought to potentially be attached to other consciousness, universal consciousness, the part of yourself that might be related to intuition, and just has that greater and wider knowing. However you choose to think of consciousness, in meditative practices, it can really help to separate and segment the different parts of the self. The ego separate from the identity, the thoughts separate from you, the body separate from consciousness. Just allowing this degree of separation just allows a less judgmental response. It allows us to take that step back and observe as if we're watching a stranger stream of consciousness, observing sensations in a stranger's body. When you're ready, guide gently back through center. Guide the arms down by your side, legs long. You can relax wherever you feel comfortable to. And even if it's for the last time today, allow the mind to be in a state of complete stillness. This doesn't mean we can't experience thoughts. It just means that when we do, when a thought floats in or arises, we give ourselves permission to be still and observe it. Meditative practices such as yin can be quite challenging because each pose is thought to release tension from the body. And as we release tension, it can float into your mind, either in the form of a thought or a feeling, an emotion, an energy shift. So therefore, we can feel these distractions are quite attached, quite heavy, and we just create a lightness to the thought by allowing it to exist there until it doesn't feel so heavy anymore. However, it can be a little bit easier than meditation in some ways because we are moving every few minutes rather than just staying in one set position. Therefore, we can feel less restless, and the depth of stretch that we feel, those deep stretching sensations, can also serve as another focal point. So in meditation, we might just focus on a sound or a flame or the breath. But in yin, we can also focus on the breath and the sensations we feel, which is strong enough to hold our focus in the present moment. So we allow ourselves here just to become aware of anything that did arise in your session. And we're going to draw upon a sankalpa here, a seed that we're going to plant within our subconscious. This could be to spend more time with emotions that arise, spend more time bringing balance into the yin yang bodies. Whatever resonates with you. Your sankalpa or your mantra could be, what came up for me in this session? I will approach this with a yin-like essence throughout my week. Or, what came up for me throughout this session? I will approach this with compassion, unconditional, universal love. When you're feeling ready, begin to bring movement into your toes. Begin to bring movement into your ankles, into your fingertips, and into your wrists. Into your knees and your hips. And your elbows and your shoulders. Gently hug your legs in when you're ready. And roll onto one side. Making your way up into a comfortable upright position. Namaste.